Hello and welcome to City Life. I'm Beverly Thompson, your host. What do you want in your bus service? Or if you don't ride the bus, what would entice you to do so? Joining me now to talk about how they are designing a better bus service for Durham and what it means for you is John Tallmadge with Triangle Transit. Welcome, John, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Beverly.
John, Triangle Transit has been operating data for the city of Durham for about 2 years now. Why design a better bus service now, or a better bus system now, and what were your goals in doing so?
This is actually something that's been in the works for a while. It takes quite a bit of effort to go talk to customers, talk to stakeholders in the community, and figure out what the needs are and how well the service is matching those needs. It's something that every business has to do on a periodic basis. Make sure the products that they're offering, the services that they're offering are doing the best job they can at meeting those customer needs. We started immediately upon entering in the contract with the city, talking to customers, talking to neighborhood groups, talking to stakeholders in the community like the big university institutions, Durham Tech, and city government, county government offices, and other businesses, and started to hear from them what they wanted out of the system. And we've arrived at 4 goals. And the first of those goals is creating an environment that's safe and that feels safe to the customers and to the community. The second is providing services that are reliable and that the service quality is meeting customer expectations. The third is being financially responsible, and that means matching the services better with where the demands are, being as efficient as we can with the city's limited resources in providing these transit services. And the fourth is providing services that support economic development and support educational opportunities for the community, for the members of Durham.
Okay. John, why was it so important for you to involve so many stakeholders, say especially the public, in this whole process?
Yeah, we started with the customers because we move 22,000 people a day, 22,000 boardings every day. And we want to make sure that the service is meeting those customers' needs. We can't hope to entice new people to ride unless we're doing a good job with the current service. And so that's where we started. We also knew that there are stakeholders, there are neighborhood groups, there are the members, the communities that are interested in using the services. And so we wanted to hear what they want, and that's why we went out to talk to them.
Okay, and that's a very important thing to do, to listen to your stakeholders. But after observing the current system, you say your number one goal was to address safety. Why was that so important?
Well, one of the other things that we started to do, one of the ways that we reached out to customers is to hold a monthly public meeting at Durham Station. We also did an onboard survey where we asked customers to rate the system on a whole host of variables. And one of those issues that we were hearing on a recurring basis was, I don't feel safe when I see what certain other riders are doing. The way I can get to the bus stop is not located in as safe a place as it should be. And so that's one place, or really what drives that goal. The other is the resident survey that the city does every year. The score on that was not high. People's perceptions, whether they ride or not, was not that high. And we know that this is both things that we need to work on, and we can do that by reducing overcrowding and other strategies. And it's also perception, and so we'll be working on that as well.
So it's a combination of both perception and actual reality, I guess. Okay, I know your second goal was service quality. What did your customers tell you about the on-time performance of the system?
Well, again, on that survey, that is the number one request for improvement, is make sure that the buses are running on time. Right now they run on time a little better than 60% of the trips. And that you feel that in 2 different ways if you're riding a bus. One is when you're standing out at a bus stop waiting, the schedule says it's going to be there at a certain time, and it creates uncertainty if the bus is not there at that time. The other is, because of the type of city we live in, there are a lot of times people have to go from one bus to another to connect through in downtown, and if buses are running late, they're missing transfers. And so those are really important to really improve the experience that people have on the buses. The other reason that we need to improve it is because we track this. We know that this is not just perception of customers complaining, that We measure the buses every time they're out on the road, and we know where the problems are and how to address them.
Well, let's talk about fiscal responsibility. I mean, I think most people, or most administrators, I guess most riders probably don't know the bus systems don't pay for themselves. I mean, you don't collect enough fares at the fare box to do that. How does this whole effort help improve fiscal responsibility?
Well, it's true that the city has finite resources to devote to the transit services. And so we need to be as efficient as possible with the dollars that the city is putting in. Today, the system pretty much provides the same quality of service in terms of how frequent the buses come throughout the city. And that is true on the corridors where there are standees much of the time because there's so much demand, as well as places where people may see fewer riders during times of day. And so this is an effort to look at that, where are people using the services, and to match up how frequent we provide the services and where we provide the services with where those demands are.
Okay. I know the final goal was to improve connections to important destinations in Durham. How is this missing from the current service or the current system?
Yeah, the current system does connect to all the universities, the community college, the major employment locations, and the major neighborhoods where people are living. But it's not always the most direct connection. And sometimes it requires a transfer where one might not be needed. And so it was really looking at how to make that access more direct to the major job centers and the educational institutions. There are some high schools that are not currently served. And so we also have been looking at how to extend service to those locations.
I know some parents would be glad to hear that. I know, okay, you've got your key goals identified now. Looking at all of this as a big picture, what will all of this accomplish for the bus system?
Well, we think that we've got strategies in this plan to meet all of those goals. And so in terms of safety, what people will see is improvements at the bus stop level, and also reduced overcrowding, which we think creates quite a bit of the conflict that people might experience on buses. Improving that on-time performance to 90% from that 61% level that it's at today. We think that's the first thing that people will see in improvements, and should have a significant effect on the quality of their experience. And it's not just that they'll be on time, but it does reduce stress levels for people when they're riding the bus. It reduces stress levels for drivers. There are lots of benefits to being reliable with the service. Again, I've mentioned the matching up the service where it's being used, and so people will see more frequent service in some corridors and less frequent in others. But on balance, we're going to see the bulk of today's ridership is provided better quality service than before. And then we mentioned the connections to the institutions, the job centers, and the educational institutions being more direct. When you're starting out on a street, knowing more or less that you're going to continue on it until you get to that destination.
Okay, good information, good background, but I know we probably need to talk about a few more details that people want to hear about. So we're going to take a quick break right now. And coming up in the next segment, how will Triangle Transit put their recommendations for a better bus system into action? And how will it affect you? We'll be right back.
Bacteria is the leading cause of tooth decay, which is the #1 chronic childhood disease. Ugh, that ain't no fairy tale. What?
Tell the kids of America how to prevent tooth decay.
Do I get a superhero costume? A tooth fairy?
Kids of America.
You gotta brush them, floss them, and rinse them twice a day.
Visit the dentist and go to americastoothfairy.org to help rescue a kid from pain.
Let's get her done.
Welcome back to City Life. With your involvement, Triangle Transit now has some key recommendations to improve the data bus system. Joining me again to talk more about that is John Tallmadge. Thanks for staying with us, John.
Sure.
John, I know you earlier shared that your #1 goal was to improve safety. How does this new plan accomplish that?
The first is reducing the overcrowding, where there's standees on a lot of trips. And the places that people are going where we see that is the Village Shopping Center out in East Durham along Holloway Street. Second is people traveling to Northgate Mall from downtown. The third is North Carolina Central University from a couple different corridors, and so reducing that overcrowding. And then people going to Durham Tech, so during those school hours in particular, providing more frequent service. And that's how we address the overcrowding, is instead of every 30 minutes, have a bus come every 15 minutes during those times of day.
Okay.
The second way is to improve, it's not on the bus, but where you're waiting for the bus or getting to the bus. And so the plan outlines making improvements to 200 bus stops throughout the system. 200 sounds like a lot. There are well over 1,300 bus stops in the system. So this doesn't get to every single last bus stop, but we'll be able to get to where most of the people are using the system. And the third is improving the access to it. So we have 3 corridors. It's the Holloway Street corridor, Fayetteville Street, and Roxborough Street north of downtown, where we'll be able to make improvements to the sidewalk and connections across streets and the streets leading to the bus stops, so that we complete some of those sidewalk networks. And this works with the city's sidewalks plan in doing that. The fourth is there are some key locations where there's heavy loads of people who are waiting to board the bus. Our customers at Northgate, at the Village Shopping Center, down at South Point Mall, and other places where we have more than one bus meeting, identifying those locations for improvements so there's ample space for people to wait and be under shelter.
Okay. How is all of this going to work together to improve service quality?
So again, the service quality factor that we're really aiming to improve is the on-time performance. And that is requiring us to look at every single route, and we have done that with the help of a consultant, and identified what the operating speed is and how long we can go. And so there are adjustments to every single route in the system that would be made through this plan in order to make sure we can operate 90% on time. The other service quality improvement is really those frequency improvements that come throughout the plan. But I think that what people will notice first is all the adjustments that are being made to make the buses run on time.
Okay, I want to ask you something. I hear a lot of people say that, you know, I drive around, I see the data buses, a lot of times there are only 4 or 5 people on them at any given time, and which means to them that this system isn't operating as efficiently as it could. How does this plan address that issue? Or is that even a false premise or a true premise?
Well, I hear that as well, and when you look at the ridership on the system and the loads on board the buses and you compare it to other cities, the city of Durham does very well. There are, for every trip out, one-way trip, there are on average 17 people on board. Now, that's an average, and so it means that at peak times there are standees, and that means there's well over 30, sometimes 40 people. At other times, or places along the route, there are fewer. And that's why we've done this, look at when are people using the routes, where are they using the routes, and trying to balance the amount of service that's provided in these locations. In most places this is either improving frequency in the segments that are most heavily used, going from 30 minutes to only once an hour in the segments that aren't well used, and in a few isolated cases we're proposing not to provide service any longer. If we look at how many people get on board at every stop in the system, out of those 22,000 daily stops, only 190 would not be within a short walk of the newly recommended services.
You said 22,000?
22,000 daily boardings on board the buses, and only 190 that would not have a short walk to the bus in the new scenario.
Okay, all right. Well, let's talk about community benefits overall. How will this plan help support economic development?
The economic development that we've defined is really access to jobs and access to the educational opportunities.
Okay.
And the #1 job center in Durham is that corridor around Irwin Road, which is Duke Medical Center and the VA Medical Centers. I think it's the single biggest private employer in all of the Triangle. And so looking at how can we provide more direct service to that, and the plan provides new corridors from the north and from the south that would come in, and more frequent service from the west and from Chapel Hill. It also, in later scenario of the plan, has service even from as far north as Rougemont and parts of northern Orange County into the Duke Medical Center, where there are concentrations of employees. But it also improves frequency. So this builds a frequent bus network where the buses would run every 15 minutes and it would connect to North Carolina Central University, to Durham Tech. It would connect those places and others with Northgate Mall and with Durham Regional Hospital and down toward the South Square area, 15501. So supporting people moving back and forth in those corridors to these major employment locations, whether they're the jobs at the medical center or retail jobs at some of these other outlets. We think providing that 15-minute frequency is going to be attractive to a lot more people.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The other educational access that we provide, I mentioned before, is looking at all the high schools. And so in this plan, Riverside, which was the high school that wasn't served before, Jordan, Hillside has improved service, more routes would serve Hillside High School. All the public high schools in Durham Public Schools would be connected in the network.
John, it's obvious you've put a lot of time and effort into this whole plan, and you've gotten a lot of public input, which is a good thing. But any plan comes with a cost. What is it for this one?
Well, let me talk about the public input that we've received. We've done over 40 public meetings in the different phases of this, and had hundreds of people involved. We've also had a sounding board, which is really an advisory group of Durham citizens, mostly riders, some not riders, that have walked through this whole process with us and given us great feedback in order to shape this. The plan itself has 3 scenarios. The first scenario can be implemented right away because it assumes no new revenue sources. There's the sources that pay for the system today are Durham local taxes. There are state grants, there are federal grants, and there are, of course, the fares paid by the customers who ride every day. This initial scenario where we have all the on-time performance improvements, we're actually able to do more efficiently than today's system, and so we reduce the number of hours. The expansions of service, where we go to 15-minute frequency on more corridors and provide the new access to Duke and the medical centers there, do require more money. And so those were outlined in the county bus and rail investment plan last year that the county adopted and the city endorsed. The first is a vehicle registration fee, and that's scenario 2, is what could we do with that increase in $10 vehicle registration fee. And those are the 2 new routes into Duke and some more improved frequency to North Carolina Central University. Then the third scenario is the major expansion, and that requires the half-cent sales tax that was approved by 60% of Durham's voters last November. Both of those require action by the county commissioners, and so we're waiting for them to make a decision before we can implement those changes.
I see. So there are some revenue options there. It's just going to require some discussion and decision making, obviously. So tell us what the next steps are and where can our viewers go if they want more information.
Yeah, so the draft plan was released at the end of March, and we got feedback. We had a April public hearing before the City Council, and we're shaping the final plan, which should be done in the next 2 weeks. So we'll be resubmitting that to the Durham City Council for their consideration at their June 18th meeting. There'll be a June 6th public meeting at Durham Station in the evening where we'll share what's in the final plan and what changes were made from the draft plan. The action, if the City Council takes action in June, then there are just a few implementation dates, and those would be October would be the primary or the initial changes, and they'd be pretty limited, and then most of the changes would take place in January of 2013. So halfway into the fiscal year for the city. All the details can be found online at dbbs.gotriangle.org.
Okay.
And we will be working very hard to explain to people the changes, if the City Council approves them, well in advance of them so that they know what to expect.
Okay, all right. John, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a very informative show about changes, possible changes underway for the data system. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Coming up next, we're going to take a close look at litter, why you should care about trash in our community, and why you should help make a difference. Stay with us. We'll be right back.